Okay. Time to start the video. I guess I should check if that window's open. Alright. Alright, it is closed. I'm just right next to the road, so that means I'm gonna. Excuse me. Alright, window's closed. That means there's any cars there going by. I can't do anything about that. So that sucks. Anyway, the name is Samson Crawford. Hello there. I'm gonna talk about storytelling with beginnings, middles, ends, the whole thing. Alright, so let's start at the beginning of a story. Now, beginnings are, or can be difficult. You have to come up with the idea of where to start. Because I always find the beginning and ending usually the easiest out of the whole process. So, like, beginning is always going to be difficult trying to find the idea you want to start with. Once you have that idea you want to start with, just get like basic ideas down. Kind of like, who do you want to introduce? Who do you want your main character to be? Basics of the world you're creating. Is it going to be in a fantasy world, a modern world, different version of this world? Basically, get an idea of the world you want to fill. That's generally what the beginning of this story is. It's introducing the main character, and not only that, but also the characters they're going to interact with largely throughout the rest of the story. Or at least it gives that idea of who you're going to be interacting with mainly as the reader. Yeah. And once you get that basic part done, generally, yeah, the beginning is easy. Because you're basically, yeah, just starting the ball rolling. That's essentially it. The middle part, this is where it's difficult. For any story, even if it's like a 2-page short story, novella, that's like 80 pages, I don't know. Even like a novel, that's like 300 plus pages or more. Like, yeah. The middle is always going to be the most difficult part because that is the content of the story. That is where the story goes. That basically affects how the ending of the story is going to occur. It affects how you leave the reader. Is there going to be another book? Or it essentially leads to how you're going to leave the story. Like, yeah, because the content in the middle section affects the ending. So it's one of the most important parts of the whole story. By having the. Well, because, yeah, there can be parts of the middle story that you introduce, but you'll not finish. And that's because you want it maybe for like another book later down the road. Or even another short story. You want to start something there, but you don't necessarily want to finish it there. If it's going to be one book, you want to start and be able to kind of complete that story arc within the middle. You kind of want to start it and end it within the middle section in the content, the storyline, the bulk of it. And basically, this is where you get the largest drudge. This is why people stop writing. Yeah, it's basically just getting the bulk of the story done. Of yeah, it's basically, well, it can be the most exciting and boring part at the same time. Exciting part because you're getting so many different things either introduced or you're getting more detail behind who the character is, why they're doing what they're doing, where they're going with things. It explains essentially what is going on and why it is going on, both for storyline, for character development, for um, just for extra information that the reader can get, but the characters themselves might not get. That's what the middle part does. It expands on the world that you're creating, essentially. And then the end. Again, one of the easier parts, like the beginning. Basically, the ending is it's the last part of the story that wraps up any major final storylines that you have. Yeah, like the ending is like the ending's a fun part once you can get there. uh, yeah, and once you're there, then it's like, oh yes, this is amazing. Like then you can neatly pack it up with a bow. You can make sure that the paper is just right, the wrapping paper is just right in the box or whatever container you're using. It's it's the part that helps complete the story and not just actually physically completing it. It also gives a an ending for the reader to a certain degree. Even if it's book one of a series, it can still give a finite ending, meaning this section of that overarching storyline can be done in the first, let's say, short story. If bored, but if it's just but if it's just one story, one book, that's it. It just like that's the end. That's it. And yeah, like I've seen some books where like the beginning's fantastic, the ending's amazing, but the middle is just terrible. There's also other ones where the beginning and the middle are fantastic, but the ending's shit or the ending's terrible. Take the Eragon series for example. Now I kind of read the Eragon series, like those books, along with the Windsinger series, so I tend to get the two so yeah, I tend to mash up the Windsinger series and the Eragon series. So anyway, what I do remember is that the Eragon series really actually built up Eragon. Um, I think it was his brother or that other character that was the um the evil one, the Shadow Hunter person, like with the dark. I don't remember exactly his name. Um, but anyway, that other character, and then the teacher that Eragon has, then finally the villain who John Malkovich plays in the movie, which is terrible by the way. The movie was. Yeah. Anyway, so the author who wrote that book did this fantastic way of building up the story, building up the world. Despite the fact that yes, from what I do remember, I think he actually took a large portion of his story ideas from other books, and building and all that came from other books. However, uh, I liked the way he was still able to create the world. The ending was terrible of the book series, um, especially when I read it because it seemed like the book was ramping up to so much, and then spoiler alerts, the the main villain essentially like just beats down Eragon to the point where it's like really, where it's like we've seen Eragon's character develop so much where he's essentially a demigod character, kind of like Hercules in that sense, where he's essentially this supposed to be at least this badass character that can take on anybody. He's one of the most powerful characters in this world. However, all of this is built up, and then the main villain swats him away like a fly. Like, okay, sure, he's an overpowered big bad boy at the end, or the big bad guy, BBG. Okay, but really, to that extent, like it took like what 3 or 4 books just to, or however many books just to get to the final boss battle, and then really just done. That's it. Like, really? And like it didn't even wrap up the major storylines all that well. It's just, oh, this happened, okay. Like it seemed like the last chapter, which was like 5, maybe 6 pages, just seemed like the publisher told the author, you have to finish it now because you have to get it out on shelves, like the book. And he's like, oh, okay. And then just quickly types up whatever he can, really just to get the book out. And it was just, oh, it was frustrating as a reader. And I only read the series once because of that. Uh, because, like, what's the point in rereading it if you know you're just going to be disappointed at the end? So, yeah. That's one of the best examples I can give of a book starting off great, but then ending terribly, or at least a book series. Because, yeah, the first book introduced a lot of people. Like, the first book introduced the world, the characters, how the world looked, how the weather was, the food that people ate, the culture of the different peoples in the world. And then the middle section of the books, or the next books, like, yeah, what I remember is that I just did not want to put the books down. And then the final book, it's like, all right, okay. Final book. Like, there's a little bit of, that excitement in the stomach. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta read the final book. It's about to all wrap up. And then, then you get to the point in the book where it's okay. I can feel this wrapping up. But the main storyline for Eragon just kept on going and going and going. And all of a sudden there's like 10 pages left. You're like, okay, how is this gonna wrap up? It seemed like there was like maybe 2 other books that could have been written about his storyline alone. And then it's just like, okay, let's wrap this up again, like that. Let's get this done right away. Let's keep it going. And it just sucked because again, it's like, as another example, it's like writing a paper for school, and then the word count's only like maybe 3,000 words, and you've written 2,500 for your first 2 out of 5 points, and you can't go over. But yet your first 2 points were fantastic, and your last one has to just wrap up in 500 words plus the outro or the conclusion, and then you just like in 250 words you do your third point, wrap up to the conclusion. That's it. That's kind of like what it is. It's like, yep, let's just wrap up what we can, and you just kind of half-ass it. There we go. And yeah, it was just that's not how you do it properly. Like, it sucked for that book series. But anyway, that should be probably the end of that video. I guess I'll see you in the next one.